Alrighty guys, it's Alex here from the Back Four Podcast, and today is currently January 26th, meaning it is Australia Day. I want to wish all of you from Australia a very happy Australia Day, and because it's Australia Day, I'm going to be going through the entirety of the Australian Asian Cup campaign so far. So we've just completed the group stage, we've found out our opponent for the round of 16. I'm going to go through that in the next video that I do on the Asian Cup, which is going to be my predictions for the round of 16. But for now, we're just going to get through... We're going to get through this video here of my reactions to the tournament so far. First of all, we're going to discuss the squads, then we're going to move on to our game against India, Syria, Uzbekistan, and what I'm thinking of the playing style and everything, and what I'm predicting for the rest of the tournament. Alrighty, let's get into the start. Now, first thing we're going to go through is the squads, and how this is going to work is I'm going to compare my squad with the squad that the Socceroos did end up putting out for their tournament. I'm going to think about where I would have sort of put different players, and if I think my squad is better compared to the Socceroos, and the reasoning behind why some players were omitted from my squad and why some may have been omitted from the Socceroos squad. But firstly, we're going to go through my goalkeepers and then compare them to the Socceroos goalkeepers. My goalkeepers that I picked for this tournament were Matt Ryan, Joe Gauci, and Lawrence Thomas. Now, this is one of the very few times in the video where me and Arnie actually got something agreed on to this point. He also chose Matt Ryan, Lawrence Thomas, and Joe Gauci as his three keepers. Personally, I was expecting maybe Lawrence Thomas to start a few of the early games, considering about Matt Ryan's broken cheekbone, but he has had the mask on the entirety of the tournament, and he's been relatively good, apart from that nearly very bad mistake that he had against Uzbekistan. But yeah, aside from that, he's been very solid. I'm glad to see he's doing well going into the knockout rounds, and yeah, me and Arnie were along the same line of thinking. A lot of people were putting Balokovic in there for that third goalkeeper spot. Personally, I wouldn't want to take him away from Petersburg just yet. Just because he's been on great form there, and he's getting plenty of game time, so there's no real need to take him away from his club at this point. So yeah, very happy with the decisions Arnie made there, and let's get on to the defenders. Now we're going to get on to the first part of the video where me and Arnie had very different opinions on the squad. We're going to get on to the defenders. So firstly, for fullbacks, for left back, my choices were Aziz Behich and Jordan Boss, and for right backs, my choice was Lewis Miller and Nathaniel Atkinson. Now, Arnie also went down the same line of thinking. I believe it was because mainly he wanted to have sort of one more attacking fullback on either side, but also one that was sort of a hybrid between an attacking and defensive fullback to sort of, for those games where we're soaking up pressure. That's why I believe he took Jordan Boss and Nathaniel Atkinson more as his attacking fullbacks, and sort of had Aziz Behich and Lewis Miller more as his more hybrid attacking and defensive fullbacks. So yeah, good choices there by Arnie. I can't complain with that at all. I would have done the exact same thing. So onto the centre-backs, my choices were Harry Suter, Alessio Cacciati, Cameron Burgess, and Miloš Degenek as a hybrid centre-back and fullback. Now, Arnie went down a similar line of thinking, though not the same as me. He went Alessandro Cacciati, Kai Rouse, Cameron Burgess, he went for Thomas Deng, and he also went for Gethin Jones. Now, this was a bit of a weird one for me, especially because I only personally picked the 8 defenders. I didn't really go for the added one at the end there. But seeing Gethin Jones getting a call-up was very weird. It felt a bit out of place. I also felt Miloš Degenek was a bit hard done by, maybe even Alex Grant being a bit hard done by getting called over Thomas Deng. But I can't complain with Tommy Deng getting called in. He's a great defender. He loves playing for the Socceroos. But one that I didn't get right at the moment was Gethin Jones. Now, I understand that you want to bring in a more defensive right back, but at that point, why not just bring in Miloš Degenek? I mean, he's been playing for the Socceroos for years now. He had a pretty decent World Cup campaign as well. I was pretty impressed with his performances in the World Cup. Thomas Deng as well. I mean, he's a more defensive fullback that could probably play that inverted role that Gethin Jones has been playing. So I really don't see much of the point of bringing Gethin Jones along. We're going to get into his performances later, but just for now, I'll just say I wasn't too sure with the selection of Gethin Jones right from the start. We'll see how it turns out when I get around to the performance. Now, midfield has easily been the most debated topic around this Socceroos squad, especially since Arnie went really outside of what the opinions of the general public were in terms of who should be selected for the squad, especially with the fact that he only really brought along one solid attacking midfielder and brought 3 defensive mids in this lineup. Let's just go through his picks. His picks were Patrick Yazbek making his call-up for the Socceroos debut, Keanu Backus, Jackson Irvine, Connor Metcalf, Riley McGree, and Aidan O'Neill. Now, personally, I think these are good picks. I probably would have made most of them as well. Maybe not necessarily Yazbek being called up, but for the other 5, Metcalf, Irvine, O'Neill, Backus, McGree, they would have absolutely been in my picks. Yazbek, I understand. He's been in great form, but I would have at least appreciated him being called up to the friendlies before this and at least getting some playing time there before he was called up to an Asian Cup squad, especially since we've taken him away from Viking where he was getting, a regular amount of starts as well. It's just a bit weird to me seeing that call up. One thing that I do have to notice is there is only one attacking midfielder, leaving, I'd say, Jackson Irvine as the closest thing we have to a backup attacking midfielder. Maybe even Marco Tilio. We'll get into that later on because I know there's plenty of discussion about that. But yeah, I didn't really understand not bringing a backup attacking midfielder. I feel like Alex Robertson was very hard done by. Of course, he did unfortunately rupture his hamstring playing for Portsmouth just a week after the squad announcement. So, hey, there's plenty of discussion there. If Arnie called up Alex Robertson, would he still be playing right now? You never know. But look, I think it's very unfortunate, and we'll get into that discussion later, but I definitely think it's a topic of discussion. Now let's go through my midfield picks. I actually picked 7 players compared to Arnie's 6. Let's go through the ones that I agreed with him on first. Connor Metcalf, Jackson Irvine, Aidan O'Neill, Keanu Bacchus, and Riley McGree. Now, you might be wondering where the other 2 picks that I have gone. I haven't gone for Patrick Yazbek. I haven't gone for that third defensive midfielder. What I've gone for is Massimo Luongo, especially after the form he's been on for Ipswich. I've put him in the squad as sort of a player that can play either that more forward playmaking role or a deep line playmaking role when we're trying to sort of be more attacking against lesser teams. And also Alex Robertson. I've put him in there as an impact sub to come on as a cam. Now, I know a lot of people didn't want to take him away from Portsmouth, so if you don't take Alex Robertson, I think you have to take Dennis Genro. I think it's absolutely vital that you have a backup attacking mid who you can bring on late in a game to be able to impact the game against tired opposition. The fact that we didn't really bring one like that, I think, has been imperative to the fact that we have struggled deeply against teams, especially getting into the last 30 minutes of our games. We're not creating enough. We're not doing enough when we're in possession of the ball. I'll get into why I think that is later on when I'm talking about tactics, but those are my picks for midfield for now. Personally, I'd have to rather my midfield. I think there's much more depth. There's much more sort of sense in the fact that there's a backup player for every position as well as an impact player that you can bring on to sort of impact that game late depending on the situation. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, but we'll get on to the attackers now. Now, just like me, Graham Arnold has actually brought along 8 attackers, which was surprising to me. He opted for the less man in midfield, more man in defense, and sort of the same with me in attack, but let's go over it. He opted for his wingers being Martin Boyle, Sammy Silvera, Craig Goodwin, and Marco Tilio. Now, those were very interesting picks. I can't argue with Goodwin and Boyle. Silvera's been on okay form for Middlesbrough. He's not been fantastic. He's not been horrible. Tilio was a very weird one for me, especially because Graham Arnold made a whole thing of it before the tournament, being that he wanted to pick players that were on form, players that were playing. Bringing along someone like Marco Tilio was a big shock. I do like it personally. I'm a big fan of Tilio. He hasn't been playing at Celtic. I think he needs a loan move away, 100%, especially for next season as well. He needs to be getting consistent first-team football. I think League One would be a great level for him to sort of go and establish himself. But yeah, it was a very weird pick seeing him come along. I don't mind it per se, but it probably wouldn't have been a pick that I would have gone with. But that's neither here nor there. Let's just get into my winger picks. Since I have 8 players, I've opted to bring in 5 wingers. Now, the wingers that I have off the left are Craig Goodwin and Sammy Silvera. The wingers I have off the right are Martin Boyle and Garang Kuol. And the winger that I have on either side to be able to impact a game, come on as a sub, and just run havoc at defenses later on in the game is the one and only Nestori Irankunda. Now, I'm very surprised that neither Kuol or Irankunda got the call up. I was expecting at least one of them to be able to get the call up, especially since we brought along Silvera and Tilio, which I'd say don't have as much impact late on in a game as the likes of an Irankunda or a Kuol. They just have much better attributes, in my opinion, for being able to come on late in the game and being able to impact. I understand why you'd bring Silvera on maybe as someone that you'd start from the start of the game, but considering the way that Arnie has used him this tournament, I have absolutely no clue what he was thinking with bringing Silvera. We'll get into that, like I said, later, but I'm just a bit dumbfounded at the moment. Let's just get on to the strikers. Now, this is a position that has absolutely baffled me. Okay, so I've brought in 3 strikers. I brought Bruno Fornaroli being the top scorer in the A-League right now. He's the best Australian striker on form. You have to bring him in. Mitch Duke has been our starting striker for a few years now. You've got to bring him in as well. And I brought Cassini Yengi because I think He's relatively close to what Duke has in terms of a profile, but he's much more athletic. He's much more mobile. I think he's probably better than Duke in a lot of aspects. So definitely a guy that I would have loved to see starting more at this World Cup. Arnie bought 4 strikers in a 1-striker formation. He bought the same 3 as me, Bruno Fornaroli, Mitch Duke, Cassini Yengi, but he also bought Iredale. Now, I'm an Iredale, I wouldn't say fan, like I don't rave about him. He's a good striker, don't get me wrong. Relatively young, he could easily be alongside Cassini Yengi to sort of take up that starting striker role for the next few years while we wait for guys like Waddingham, Botic, guys along that line to come through. But he started 5 league games this season in Bundesliga 2. He scored 2 goals in 10 appearances. Does that warrant an Asian Cup call-up, especially when you bring him to sacrifice the fact that to sacrifice a backup attacking midfielder or a Massimo Luongo of sorts? I really don't know if it does. And in my opinion, especially considering that I'm pretty sure in the 3 games that we played so far in the group stage, he hasn't made even the squad, not even the bench. He hasn't made the bench once. I don't understand the point of it. And sure, you could say, oh, well, he's there in case of injuries and whatnot, but Duke was injured for the last game against Uzbekistan, and we were struggling, and Iredale still couldn't get on the pitch. So I don't really understand the point of it. I think it was a very bad decision by Arnie to bring 4 strikers. If you want to bring someone in for national team experience, sure, but you have the friendlies for that. You have the World Cup qualifiers against the likes of Bangladesh and Palestine. I don't understand why you bring them to the Asian Cup. This is the big event. This is our main chance to win silverware outside of the World Cup, and we're not going to be doing it there for any time soon. So you have to bring your absolute best squad. You have to make the right decisions in terms of who's going to be able to impact games here and there, who's going to be able to start. I just don't see the point in bringing Iredale. I don't hate Iredale, don't get me wrong. He's a great player, a great striker. I really hope he finds form. He's got a lot of time to do it. He's very young. I'd love to see him get an A-League move maybe and just run havoc in the A-League. But look, I can ramble on about that for hours. Let's just get into the games and the play style and tactics and let's just get into that. Now, let's get into the first game against India. And the main thing that I noticed with the start was just how sort of unattacking and defensive that the lineup looked. I was very surprised by how relatively uninspiring it was. Matt Ryan was back in goal, which was a good sign to see. I was expecting Lawrence Thomas to get the start, but it's good to see Matt Ryan in there, all safe and good. The back four was very defensive, considering that we had Gethin Jones, Harry Sutar, Kai Rouse, and Aziz Bayic, 4 more defensive-minded defenders. The midfield 3, like I said, was also very defensive. We had a centre mid and then 2 8s. We had Metcalf, Irvine, and Keanu Bacchus in there. And then the front 3, Craig Goodwin, Mitch Duke, and Martin Boyle. When I saw that, I was like, yep, I can tell we're still playing Arnie ball here. Swinging in crosses into a big bastard striker and absolutely nothing in build-up play. So we were in for a long night. This is also the infamous game that you can check out on my channel right now, my live reaction to it at the live site in Sydney. It's got 2,500 views. It's called Australian Man Suffers Watching Asian Cup. Thank you all for the support on that one, by the way. But you could just tell from the start of the game what kind of game this was going to be. India sat back and it was cross after cross after cross after cross. It was very uninspiring. We had 28 total shots that game. We had only 2 big chances created, which was very poor on our part. And the goals themselves were nothing special either. I mean, Martin Boyle hit about, I'd have to say, 15 to 20 failed crosses that night. And the one time that he actually, had people singing his praises was he did a nice dribble down the line, attempted to cross it, and he screwed the cross. And it fell to Irvine, luckily, who tapped it in. But Irvine himself hadn't had a good tournament. He's been very, very sort of just iffy on the ball, not really being able to break the lines at all, which is not what we need from him. And Boyle was just not good. He was just not good. He had, like I said, a lovely dribble. Beat 2 Indian defenders. But then, failed cross into the box. Fell to Irvine, and we luckily got the 1-0 lead. Geordie Boss did fantastic to get his first Socceroos goal, so I'm very happy for him to be able to get that. But, I was really expecting us to go more attacking. Now, I wasn't expecting anything massive. I wasn't expecting us to just throw everything at them. But I would have liked to see at least something. Like, I understood, McGree wasn't there. But this is exactly why you bring that backup attacking midfielder. If you had an Alex Robertson or a Dennis Genro, then you put them there, you put Irvine or a Metcalf or whoever the hell behind them in the 8 where they're supposed to be, and you have your defensive mid who can sort of play out from deep. My perfect midfield 3 from that game would have been Massimo Luongo playing as a deep-lying playmaker because he would have gotten plenty of time on the ball and he has the ability to cut through those defensive lines, especially when they're holding deep. I would have had Jackson Irvine just ahead of him, and I would have had my backup cam, whether that be Genro or Robertson, playing ahead of him. That way, we know we're going to have plenty of possession. We know we're going to have plenty of that ball. We have that ball. We look for forward passes. We're not looking for sideways passes until we get it to our wingers or our fullbacks and just swinging crosses to Mitch Duke all game, because it proved to do absolutely nothing. Mitch Duke has had a very quiet tournament, and that's not his fault necessarily. He's just put in a shit system. Like, I understand that Arnie wants him to just sit in the box and win headers, and it worked against Tunisia in the World Cup. But this isn't Tunisia. This isn't the World Cup. Alright, we don't have impact players because Arnie's decided that he's going to hedge all his bets on this system of, oh, our Australian spirit will get us over the line, guys. Our Australian spirit's going to win us the Asian Cup. We played like absolute shit. You know, like you can say, oh, 2-0 against India. Oh, we kept a clean sheet, guys. Who cares? It's fucking India. Apologies for swearing there, but it was not a good performance. I think the closest attempt India had on target was our defensive mistakes that let them, that let Sunil Chetri just get some just random chances from the byline or whatever. Like, it was absolutely terrible. India are not a good side. And to see us struggle like that was very, very disappointing. In terms of what I would have changed from that game with the players that we have, the midfield probably would have stayed the same. Like I said, I'm not happy with Arnie's picks in midfield. I would have gone for a Massimo Luongo or someone who's more sort of proficient in breaking through defensive, deep block defensive lines with their passing. And I would have gone for a backup attacking midfielder to at least bring to the squad. But in terms of the front 3, I really can't fault it. I see why Arnie did it, why he put Mitch Duke on. I would have personally started Cassini Yengi if he wanted a tall striker in there. Mitch Duke just didn't do enough for me. There wasn't enough movement. He had some good pressing at times, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Yengi could have maybe been a bit more impactful. I would have liked to have seen Bruno a bit more. I feel like Bruno really impacted the game well when he came on late on, which is maybe why Arnie brought him on. But, I just thought that Bruno could have gotten a bit more. But in terms of the game, I would have started Atkinson and Boss. Boss 100% over Bajic. If you want to start Miller just as a bit of more defensive assurity, especially since Sunil Chetri was playing down that left wing, sure, you start Lewis Miller instead of Nathaniel Atkinson. I'm not starting Gethin Jones for that game. I think that was a terrible decision. In terms of the wingers, I wouldn't have started Tilio or Silvera because I don't believe that they fit this Arnie system at all. Especially considering that Arnie has been playing Silvera off of the wrong wing to suit his strengths. He is a left winger for Middlesbrough. He plays there because he is not pacey. He is a good dribbler. He cuts inside and he has a good finesse shot. And he's also good at splitting lines with his passes when he cuts inside. The problem is, when you play him off of the right wing, with him being a natural right footer, he cannot cut in. The same sort of thing goes with Tilio, who he's been playing. Well, I say playing, he's got 5 minutes this entire tournament, which is crazy. I thought he would have at least had a few more. But, yeah, that was disappointing not to see Tilio come on a bit more. I feel like Tilio definitely could have done some damage. Especially in his 5-minute cameo, he looked fine. He looked good. But let's just forget about that India game right now. Hopefully the next game against Syria will be even better, guys. A great performance I'm hoping for against Syria. Let's get on to that. Now, of course, we've got the Syria game. Now, where do we even begin with the Syria game? Okay, following along with our sort of pattern against these not-so-good teams, we went into the Syria game, like we did against India, created really nothing of substance in the first half, and went into the second half 0-0. We got a lucky goal, a lucky goal. Absolute terrible Syrian defending, just plops right to Jackson Irvine who gets his toe on it. I was going absolutely crazy singing Jackson Irvine's praises. He's been terrible this time, let's be real. Look, he's popped up with some clutch goals, and I really appreciate it. He's done great. but he's not the same Jackson Irvine that I've been seeing from the Socceroos. Maybe it's because he's shouldering more of this attacking responsibility. And yeah, you can look at it and say, oh, well, he's got 2 goals, so you can't really complain. I can complain because we're playing against sides that are not as good as us, that we should be able to break down, that we've had heaps of the ball against, considering that they're playing extremely low blocks, and he's really not done enough to be able to split lines. And look, I understand he's not an attacking midfielder. He's an 8 by trade, okay? But that's just all the more reason why you bring in an attacking midfielder as a backup. Even someone like Marco Tilio, I feel like could have done a job there. I don't understand why he sat there on the bench and we're watching just repeated side pass after side pass after side pass, force it to the wingers and then just force a cross into the box. It didn't work against India, and shocker, it didn't work against Syria. We, on multiple occasions, nearly lost the game to Syria. And I know we won 1-0, so you can say, how did we nearly lose? Syria had some very good chances that game. I'd say there were times where they were genuinely creating better chances than us throughout that second half. So that was very concerning for me, at least, that we nearly dropped points to a Syrian team that we really should be beating. But it's just the same old with Graham Arnold ball. It's very uninspiring. It was the same in the World Cup. I caught a lot of stick for saying during the World Cup that there was not a single game in that World Cup campaign that we were genuinely the better side. France, we were the second best, 100%. Tunisia, I'd say we were level with them in terms of how we sort of dominated and impacted the game. But outside of that Mitch Duke header, what did we create against Tunisia? Not a lot. It took a lot of very good defending from Harry Sutar as well to be able to get us that result. And aside from that, we created next to nothing against Denmark. I mean, they were the better team 100%. We hit on the counter, and thanks to a brilliant piece of Matt Leckie individual brilliance, we managed to get the win. And then Argentina, we scored off of a deflection, and we created next to nothing apart from that Garen Cole chance at the end. So, look, Arnie's had this problem for a long, long time, which is another reason why I wanted him gone after the World Cup. It's very uninspiring, and it's not sustainable. I've said on Twitter multiple times and on multiple social media platforms, Arnie can't play. And I feel like Arnie's Australia team has never really been able to play on the front foot. You can look at games like that 7-0 against Bangladesh and say, oh, well, we dominated that game. But you look at the games after. Barely beating Palestine. Barely beating Bahrain. Barely beating India. Barely beating Syria. And then the game against Uzbekistan, which we'll get into, don't worry, we'll get into that. But it's not sustainable. We need to be able to beat teams on the front foot. We need to be able to go at teams, throw attacks at them, have multiple different dynamics to our attack. We can't just go down the same thing every time of force ball to winger, cross ball in box, big man head ball. We can't do it every single time. And it was proven against India. We tried it the entire game. How many times did that pay off? 0. The only time it paid off was when Martin Ball crossed the ball into the box and the header failed. The only reason it worked was because the India defender screwed up and headed it straight back to us. And then Jordy Boss's goal, it was a good goal, sure, but it had nothing to do with crossing that ball into the big man in the box. You look at the game against Syria, the same thing. Mitch Duke was ineffective. And by the way, I have not mentioned this yet. Why in God's green earth was Jordy Boss starting at left wing? I do not understand. Look, Arnie, I know you are desperate. I know you are desperate to force this same notion that you need to force balls down the line and just cross them into your big man in the middle. But please, if you are going to use Jordan Boss in a formation against a team with a low block, put Silvera on the left. Have him cut inside. Have Jordy Boss overlap. You have the crossing dynamic there from Jordy Boss, who has space opened up from Silvera cutting inside. If they give Silvera the space and don't immediately just flock to Jordan Boss, or if they immediately flock to Jordan Boss and give Silvera the space, then Silvera can cut his side. It's his main strength, cutting inside and either creating or hitting a shot from the edge of the box. He did it brilliantly for the Mariners, and I'd say majority of his chances for Middlesbrough are from those same areas. So, really, I don't understand what the whole notion behind Jordy Boss left wing with Aziz Bayic there as well was. Jordy Boss, he's much better playing inside the field and cutting in than Aziz Bayic. But he should not be a left winger. I'm sorry, especially for the national team. We've got much better options at left wing. So, I really don't get that from Graham Arnold. I thought it was a bad decision, personally. Martin Boyle, he had a bit of a quiet game as well. The midfield 3 was rather the same. I think O'Neill started or something. I can't quite remember. Gethin Jones started again, to my absolute horror. But yeah, another uninspiring performance against Syria. Let's get into the game against Uzbekistan, our final group stage game, and then I'll give my decisions on what I think it's going to take for us to actually win this tournament. So, the Uzbekistan game. Okay, wow. What else can be said about this game? We drew 1-1 against Uzbekistan, which is not good. And for all you people on social media that were calling me stupid for complaining, saying, oh, we're keeping clean sheets, there you go. We drew 1-1 to an Uzbekistan team, and the only reason we drew was because of a penalty that we, A, didn't deserve, and B, shouldn't have been given, because the referee made a horrible call giving that a penalty. I'm not going to get into that referee decision because I can't be bothered, slewing on about it for ages. But it was a horrible decision. When you have half of soccer Twitter telling you, oh my God, how have we just won that penalty? It was a horrible decision. It's most likely a horrible decision. And every person that I've spoken with has agreed it is a horrible decision. But regardless, it was the same thing. Crosses into the box to the big man in the middle, and it didn't work. Geordie Boss started left wing again, and it didn't work. Martin Boyle started right wing again and crossed, and it didn't work. Thankfully, Gethin Jones wasn't playing right back anymore. But in a game against Uzbekistan, which were arguably our best opponent, that is when you play your defensive right back. You do not play your defensive right back against India. That is not what you do. And I'm not going to put any emphasis on it, but I am just going to say that Uzbekistan's goal came from a cross on our right defensive side. Right where you should have had your defensive right back. But we had Nathaniel Atkinson there. Don't get me wrong. I think Nathaniel Atkinson should have started the game against India and the game against Syria. Uzbekistan, if you bring Gethin Jones as a defensive right back, that is the game where you play Gethin Jones. He has not impressed me at all, Gethin Jones. But I understand bringing him to play that game against Uzbekistan. Because it makes sense. They're a decent attacking side. Even without Shomurodov, they were causing us problems the entire game from all angles. Crosses into the box, dribbles down the middle, possession play, build up. They were causing problems. And it's really annoying because the game was so incredibly tight. And for an Australian team that's supposed to be really challenging for this Asian Cup here and coming off of an incredible World Cup campaign with an incredibly promising side, it was incredibly frustrating because we created next to nothing of substance. Kusini Yengi, God bless, was probably the only shining light we had in that attack the entire game. Geordie Boss had some really nice chances. He's proven to be an incredible player. But as an incredible player, I'm still not putting him at left wing. He is my left back for the Socceroos for the next decade. I am absolutely sure of it. But I'm not putting him at left wing. I can't bring myself to do that. I don't understand why that's being done. In terms of the midfield as well, same old problems with not having a cam there. Actually, sorry, we did have Riley McGree. I just feel McGree didn't have enough support. But shocker, McGree was, in my opinion, our best player that game. He was phenomenal. He was running the show. He was actually getting up there, creating, getting into those areas that Irvine hasn't been able to get into and actually playing balls. No wonder Kusini Yengi was brought into the game so much because there was actual people there providing him service from multiple angles and movement. There was space being created. Oh my God, the space that was being created. Riley McGree is an incredible player, and I really, really hope he has a good Asian Cup campaign because God knows we need it, especially with no backup cam. That's all I'm going to say for the Uzbekistan game. It was very frustrating. This whole campaign has been very, very frustrating, and I am just praying for this Asian Cup to be over soon because I can't deal with this anymore, lads. I can't deal with it. Alrighty, let's just get into my final thoughts and what I think of our next game. Now, for some of you that may have seen, Australia is opening the round of 16 for the Asian Cup, and our opponent is going to be Indonesia. Now, Indonesia have caused problems for some teams in this tournament, which is why they managed to get through on third place qualification. Look, okay? Look. As much as I've been slandering Graham Arnold, I just have to say, please put out an attacking lineup. The only chance Indonesia has of beating us is if we sit and wait and just put in nothing crosses the entire game and let them hit on the counter, all right? We can't do that. We need to be on the front foot. The lineup that I put out, I put Matt Ryan in goal. My right back, I'd put Lewis Miller. My left back, I'd put Jordan Boss. My 2 centre-backs, I'd put Cameron Burgess and Harry Souttar. My midfield, I'd go for Keanu Bacchus, I'd go for Jackson Irvine, and I'd go for Riley McGree. My front 3, I'd go for Kusini Yengi up top, I'd go for Craig Goodwin off the left, and I'd go for Martin Boyle off the right. So, the reason I'm going with that lineup, you still have the dynamic of being able to put in good crosses to a striker, but you have McGree and Irvine there who can rotate as an 8-10 partnership, alright? You have them in there constantly creating, causing havoc, attack from multiple areas. You have Jordan Boss and Lewis Miller who are able to get up and put in crosses from deep. You can put in crosses from wide. You can have good link up with that midfield there. That's all you need. You just need to go at them and just give them hell. It's likely that we're going to be playing either a South Korea or Saudi Arabia in the quarterfinals if we make it past Indonesia. But right now, please don't worry about resting people. Let's just focus on Indonesia at the task at hand. Let's get through it. We've struggled so far, but we've still got a chance to take home this tournament. I'm going to have full faith in the Aussies. I'm going to be backing them the whole way. But after this tournament, we need to have serious talks about Graham Arnold because this has not been impressive. I know he's contracted till the World Cup, but if we're going to put in performances like this up until the World Cup, especially in World Cup qualification, something needs to change. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I could ramble on forever about my distaste for this tournament so far and how we've played, but I hope you guys have all had a great Australia Day. I'm going to spend my time with family right now and cry in a corner at the prospect of watching us play South Korea and watching Mitch Duke try to win headers against Kim Min-jae. But until then, thank you guys so much for tuning into the videos. Thank you for all the support I've been getting on the career modes, on the vlogs and everything. I'm going to bring much more content to you guys in the future. I'm very happy with this daily upload schedule that we've got going, and I'm looking forward to it so much. If you guys have any thoughts on, or comments or anything that you want to let me know about, leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitch. We are new on there. The link should be in the description of this video here. But until then, thank you guys so much. Have a safe, happy Australia Day. Catch us later.